Folks, let's get fired up. We're at 2 o'clock Eastern. Can you believe it? We have been all in on this, all in on the nuggets, the knowledge, the examples, the stories, the serendipity. And it continues now with how to scale your agency with systematic referrals. Oh, yeah, we all know we get some referrals, but what about some systematic ones? What about some strategic partnerships? All right, not just a little handshake, a document or two, something really strategic. Please help welcome a person who's going to tell you all about that. Is Dan Englander. Dan's the founder of Sales Schema. I'm going to brag up on this guy right now, big time. Sales Schema, he's a new business strategist. He's helped numerous agencies escape at feast and famine cycles. Oh, we felt it, especially now. So in his session, How to Scale Your Agency with Systematic Referrals and Strategic Partnerships, he's going to give you a framework that's going to turn that referral luck into a repeatable system. Wasn't Kurt just talking about that, folks? You see how we stack this up? This ain't an accident. So you can make partnerships a core growth lever, aren't you, Dan? You're going to talk about that, aren't you?
I am. Nick, how much would it cost to have you like live in my house and just
Hey,
do
man.
that when I walk in every day?
I create, and I got a subscription service, create some content for you. I serve it up, and I AI in your voice, and it's like I just wake you up in the morning and stuff. Yeah, we'll talk about it, man.
Let's make it happen.
I'm making notes of all sorts of offerings I can be crafting here, listening to you guys. I'm like, what am I doing? I got to be spinning off all sorts of services and conversion paths here. But thank you, man. I'm fired up to have you here. That's what it's all about, just bringing you the energy, because, folks, we want our speakers to be fired up. We want you to be fired up. This is a conversation happening here. So let me just finish here. Dan's the author of Relationships at Scale. And outside his agency growth, fun fact, he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu enthusiast, brown belt. All right, it's a lot better than yellow belt. I think it's as far as I got in Taekwondo. He's a guitarist. And when he talks scaling agencies, he's got grappling metaphors and rhythm. You can't beat it, folks. So, Dan, thank you so much for coming on, good sir.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. And don't worry, there's not going to be many, if any, grappling metaphors. Appreciate everybody being here. If you wouldn't mind in the comments, just so I have a little context, can you just let me know, like, what's your biggest new business / prospecting channel right now? Like, really, like, what's paying the bills? If you wouldn't mind just plugging that in, and I'll sort of go in there as we go through this. But I won't wait. I won't put a wrench in the gears. To give you a little bit of background on me. So again, my name's Dan Englander. I'm CEO and founder of a company called Sales Schema. We are a consultancy that helps agencies and B2B service companies scale through referrals, strategic partnerships, as well as very tasteful, trust-based outreach. We've worked with more than 200 agencies since 2014. For the better part of 10 years, we were a done-for-you lead generation shop. Over the last couple of years, we've pivoted to a training and implementation model so that we can help agencies fish instead of just giving them fish over and over again. Previous to this, I started my career in accounts for a social media shop while commuting from basically Astoria, Queens to New Jersey every day, which really sucked. And then I led business development for a creative house called Idea Rocket and eventually helped them hit 7 figures, a bunch of Fortune 500 clients, other braggadocio. And basically did a lot of networking there, did a lot of kissing of frogs to try to get referrals and try to build the agency, spent hours under the trade show lights of the Javits Center. And it was hard because we sold weird stuff to rare people. We sold animated video to big companies and funded startups. And it was a lot of misspent energy trying to get referrals to stick. And it was a lot of saying, hey, do you know anyone that fits this criteria? And people that were well-meaning that wanted to help but really couldn't. So I learned a lot from that, and that's going to go into a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching. Yeah, and Nick, for your question, what channel or platform is your biggest source of new business? Okay, cool. You're asking that. I misread it. So that's a little bit of context on me to bring this to you. So Jelani says cold calls. That's great. That means that you're not going to have the same fear that a lot of people have to make this work, and I think it's going to be a no-brainer. So anyway, to bring this to you guys, what we tend to find is that agencies go through different levels of sort of growth and sophistication. So a lot of us are starting our agencies accidentally through this glorified freelancer thing. From there, a lot of people are going on. Pretty much 80% or more of our clients are what we would call this Cobblers Children phase, where you might be doing really great work for clients, but that same energy isn't always going inwards. And it's a lot of the stuff that other speakers have probably talked about, where you go heads down on a project and then you're not building these consistent sales systems. I think that this is almost orthogonal to revenue. We've worked with 7, even like people scraping 8 figures, where the owners are still very much stuck in this reactive mode and this kind of roller coaster. And we're always looking to help them go up these levels. From there, there's one called the transitional, where you might have one channel that has legs, but it's not always predictable. But it sort of becomes possible to think about hiring for sales and getting owners out of the sales seat And then there's the enterprise where you have multiple channels. Typically, owners can get out of that sales seat. It becomes way easier to sell the agency, to build an asset, and all that good stuff. But for our purposes, we're going to focus more on this situation where you don't have all the time in the world. You're balancing sales with other stuff, and you're really trying to make it work. And you're kind of in variations on this Cobblers Children phase. And I think that a lot has changed over the last few years, and a lot of how the game is played and what it takes to go up these levels has changed based on macro forces, which I'm going to talk about right now. So with that, we saw a lot of big stuff happen around 2020. Surprise, surprise. And I think the biggest thing was, as you guys might have experienced, there were ups and downs before that, but there was this digital boom, right? And a lot of agencies flooded into the market, and there became more competition for both business, but also just for attention writ large. And this is backed up by the stats. Our good friend Nick Petrosky from Promethean Research has a stat that basically between 2018 and 2023, the volume of digital agencies grew by 54%. Excuse me. I think it's actually higher because I think there's shops that just don't call themselves agencies. But anyway, you might be feeling this, and I think that because of all the choices that we all have, and especially with the onslaught of AI, we're in what many have called a trust recession, where a lot of us kind of implicitly assume the thing we need to do is like, if only I could differentiate better, if only I could send people more information on what we do, if only I could get in front of more people, then I would convert more and I would achieve all my dreams. When really, the scarce resource we're up against is lack of trust more than anything else. I think this is backed up by the fact that we're all feeling like sales cycles are getting longer. There's a lot of data to support this too. And I think this is an even bigger deal for agencies and B2B service companies because the value of what you do is not delivered until weeks or months after somebody is purchased. So that's what we're up against. And I think like in response to this, when we're working with clients, we often see them in this sort of tactic overwhelm where there's lots of start and stop experiments that don't really work. Just to kind of get some information, if you guys don't mind, like who here has bought a piece of software that just wasn't a good fit and felt kind of bloated and like it was meant for somebody else? Also, another question, you can throw me a one or a yes, like who's tried just running a big mass cold outreach campaign and had it do nothing? If there's anyone here that's maybe like hired a salesperson prematurely. So we see this across the board with lots of tactics that don't always work and that where things are start and stop. Maybe it's events, maybe it's ad funnels, maybe it's cold email, maybe it's a bloated piece of marketing software that you just don't have the time or energy to run. Often this doesn't work, or maybe it works for a little while and then fizzles out. And I think that there's different reasons behind this. Thank you, Cena, for the one. But I think there's kind of this darker reality that I see playing out, and it's starting to sort of come to the surface, right? So hopefully I have your attention with that clickbait. And that's what I'm calling the Great Mismatch. And I think that there's been this sort of neglecting of a major sector of the market where a lot of the times there's all these tactics, whether in software tools and a lot of consultants, maybe salespeople, maybe headhunters, and they're focused on a situation where there might be a down market offer, or it's really an offer that's meant for a different market than a lot of our clients have. Our experience is helping agencies sell a little bit more upmarket, a little bit uh, in a situation where there might be a longer sales cycle, a more complex service. So if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I sell to med spas or personal injury lawyers, I'm productized, to set expectations, a lot more of this is going to be going after bigger deals, but I still think you're going to benefit from thinking about partnerships and stuff. So stick with me. But if you are in a situation where you're going to meet the following constraints that I'm going to talk about, there's a good chance that a lot of the playbooks you've been fed are not the best fit for where you are. So let me talk about those constraints that I think are neglected a lot. So we use this word agency, but really it's kind of a catch-all. It's not like we're talking about e-commerce widgets. Really, like what defines what's going to work for you on a biz dev level, it's a few different things. I think the first is your resources. So a lot of these tools, tactics, etc., are implicitly for situations where you have this like funded sales team. When the fact is, most of our clients, even in bigger agencies that are getting like well into the seven figures, still have an owner-centric, if not owner-led sales process. Or maybe there's like one person that's juggling proposals and a million other things. So the fact is, like, you're busy. It's not like that's going to change overnight. And it's really less about what like all the things you can do and more about really finding that 80/20. I think that's going to be one of the most important things as we have more and more options to consume through AI and through all the new tools and all the stuff that's coming out. So that's the number one constraint is like resources, yeah, all this stuff can work, but what is the best for the time, energy, money that you have? The next is offers. Like we talked about sales cycles getting longer. And there's a completely different situation for if you have a relatively simple down market offer, like maybe you sell productized ads to med spas, personal injury lawyers. There might be one owner, one decision maker. It's a shorter sales cycle. There might be a little bit there might be a little less trust involved versus a complex sales cycle where you have a coalition of decision makers where somebody might lose their job if they hire the wrong agency, where there's a longer sales cycle, where there's more trust involved. There are less options, and I feel like there's less information for that latter situation where it's basically a marathon instead of a sprint. And the one that's going to affect what I'm going to talk about throughout the rest of this is market. We have this concept called the NFL stadium versus a high school gym. And one thing that I love is taking something that we usually think about in this like nebulous digital way, like your market or whatever it is, and really visualizing what it would look like in an analog situation. So a lot of the best practices, the so-called best practices, are built for large TAMs or total addressable markets. Like back to the med spa, entry lawyer, et cetera. If you sell to a market that you can fit into an NFL stadium, then mass outreach, crazy clay funnels, ad funnels, really big, marketing automation software makes a lot of sense, right? Because you have this like enough water to fit through these big pipes. But as trust becomes a bigger factor, what we tend to see is that more and more agencies are getting more specialized, which is a good thing. It helps them win. It's becoming table stakes. But the flip side of that is markets are getting smaller, right? Like a typical ideal client profile or ICP for our clients might be a direct to consumer brand above 5 million in revenue in the US or Canada. It might be a growth stage fintech company. It might be a mid-market apparel brand. It might be a large pharmaceutical. And then when you do the math on that, you're like, okay, this is whatever, several thousand companies, several thousand people. Yeah, maybe that's not literally a high school gym, but it's a rough visual metaphor, and that's the idea is you can actually visualize all these people in a room. So if that's you, if you especially if you're in the latter boat, really like what's the answer? What's the 80/20 for getting new prospect relationships and for keeping the pipeline full? And it's as you might have expected from the title of this, it's really referrals, but thinking about them in a different way, like the classic distracted boyfriend meme, right? It's like, what if the answer was right in front of you the whole time? And I think that there are reams of data to back this up. I'm just going to rapid fire through it. 84% of B2B decision makers start their buying process with a referral. Referral clients are 16% more valuable over their lifetime and convert far faster than cold leads. Agencies with structured referral programs are 3 to 5 times more efficient at generating new business. 82% of small to mid-sized firms say referrals are their number one source. Deals are 53% more likely to close when there is a strategic partner involved, and they close 46% faster. Sorry, Nick. I know it's one more stat, I promise. 68% of organizations now view partner marketing as essential, up from 64%. So hopefully this helps kind of get you back to the thing that may have originally worked or always worked for your agency, except for Cena, who's just closing deals on cold calls all day. Good for him. So with that, I think this goes back to the trust recession. Let's look at this. This is our invention. We call it the trust matrix. On the x-axis, we have trust, the level of trust, east to or west to east, lowest to highest. And then on the y-axis, we have volume of prospects, or really volume of people. So what we tend to see is that everybody's trying to get immediate infinite scale from the beginning. So everyone's like, great, I'm going to go after cold prospects and I'm going to run whatever outreach campaigns and all this other stuff that often doesn't work. Versus thinking about, okay, where do I have the most trust and how can I use that to level up and get to the next point? So if you look in the bottom right, you have your current clients, you might have your follow-on work, the people that they refer you to, then more trust, more volume, a little bit less trust, but more volume, rather, past clients. Then you have partners and friends, then you have your past prospects, and then you have a pretty sizable group, which is everybody that they know, like, and trust in the second degree. Not literally linked in second degree, just really relationship definition of that. So really what this is going to be about is taking these groups and using them to get targeted referrals into these accounts. Again, based on all those stats, this is really important. And also thinking about the fact that as you go more up market, more and more those sorts of decision makers are sometimes only having conversations based on referrals or just more often able to do that. But the problem is A lot of us are handling referrals the wrong way, and there's a few ways that we go about it. So overall, the rest of this presentation is going to show you exactly how to turn referrals from rain into an irrigation system. First, let's talk about rain a little bit. So a lot of us are just waiting on referrals to happen, sitting on our hands. That's the full kind of rainy day situation. A little bit better, but not good enough, kind of that yellow light situation. Some of us are saying, okay, I'm going to do some networking, or I might have a happy client or whatever. I'm going to reach out to them. I'm going to say, hey, do you know anybody that meets this criteria? Do you know a fintech decision maker? Do you know a CPG, CMO, et cetera? And can you help me out? And really that often breaks down, and I'm going to talk about why. So the referral game changer, let's talk about this a little bit. When we ask for referrals and then somebody doesn't help us, we often assume the worst because we're all wired for risk aversion, right? We're wired to find that jaguar that's going to jump out of the bush and kill us. So we assume the worst thing. We assume like, hey, this person doesn't trust me, they don't like me, they don't want to help me. And then also like we might think, hey, they're not connected, they can't really help me, they might not know anybody. But the reality is, there's a much simpler reason that they can't help us, and that's that people are busy and kind of lazy. We all are. And when you say, do you know anybody? You've basically handed them a bunch of boxes and said, here, carry these boxes for me. They have to go understand what you do, understand your differentiators, scan their network, find an intro, write an email, do all these things. Versus, like, what if you were to hand them a dolly or a push cart just to make it as easy as possible? This is not like a huge game. This is not like a 180 from any typical marketing or sales situation. It's all about making it easy for people to make decisions and removing friction. It's the exact same thing. How can you make it as easy on somebody to help you? Right. That's all that we're doing so that we can go from, hey, do you know anyone to, hey, I saw you might know these specific people. Can you help me? And then the rest of this, I'm going to talk about the referral engine, and which is basically our exact system for doing this with absolutely nothing held back. This is all of our secrets right here. So what the system looks like, I have really good news for you. If you're used to some bloated piece of software, or you're worried you're going to have to go learn Clay or any of these other things, the only tools you need for this, the 80/20 tech stack, is LinkedIn Sales Navigator. This is important because it's the source of the data. Like, there's a million intermediaries, there's Apollo, Zoom Info, all these things. They're all scraping LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the thing that we update. It's the gospel. It's the thing that is the oracle. And it also is tied into the relationships that you have. So really the core version of Sales Navigator is all you need. And then a spreadsheet, i.e. Excel or Google spreadsheet for tracking different things. So let me get into the process right now. So the first thing is, when we do this for clients, we are mapping their market, right? So this is not unlike what you would do for a traditional cold campaign or retargeting or something. We're going ABM style. We're getting clear on ICPs. We're building out specific account lists, and we're often doing this by hand in order to make sure that the end prospect is really good. So this is a little bit like knowing the destination, right? So if you were going to sail from the US to Europe, you would have a destination in mind, so that you don't end up in Venezuela. So this is basically so that you can get those in referrals and ask for them specifically. In concert with that, often in parallel, we're asking our clients, we're saying, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go through your first degree network and unearth all of the referral-ready connectors. So what does that mean? So if you're thinking about this right now, you might be thinking, okay, Dan, I've got all these connections, but they're all fake and I don't really know them. And there's people that I don't want to ask for referral. And I'm like, that's everyone, that's you, that's me. And all we're doing is using LinkedIn as a repository to find the people that we actually know and would ask for a referral from. So in our experience, that's about 2 to 10% of LinkedIn connections. So like, I have a lot of fake connections. I have 9,000 total, which is more than most people. So that's potentially like 900 people that I would put into this category. So it's a really good starting place of people that you would ask for referral. Who are these people? Often it's former clients that you forgot about, current clients, prospects that you've talked to, business partners, people that maybe have sent you referrals in the past, people you knew in previous lives. It's a lot of what they call these loose business connections that you might have forgotten about. They might be people that you've helped. We often have clients that are like, oh yeah, that guy owes me a favor. Like, I've set him up with a job. I made this intro for him. But in the course of life, we just forget about all these people, but they're all there. And it's all like capital that we've built up for people that will help us. So this is a really important starting place. And it usually takes a few days for our clients to kind of compile this data, and then we get it all ready to go. So So from there, it's really just about joining these two things using Sales Navigator. This is basically a data entry task that VAs are often doing for us, where we're building essentially connections of searches using titles and territories combined with that ABM data. So then we're able to say, okay, this person who I might have forgotten about has this many connections to the people that I want to meet. And then we're compiling it into a referral map, which is basically right now a spreadsheet. In the future, this may look nicer, but it gets the job done basically. So the way to think about this is it's kind of like a metal detector on a beach, right? These people are going to have this volume of connections. They're not going to know everybody. But if somebody has 114 or 20 or even 10 connections of the people that you want to meet, and keep in mind this person is pre-identified as somebody that you think will help you, the chances that they'll be able to make two, three, four, five intros for you are pretty high. So this is a way to rank your connectors and figure out where to invest your energy. So from there, you've identified your referral-ready connectors. You know where you're going. You know who you want to meet. You know who to focus your energy on first. Then it's all just about re-engaging them and having these conversations, which brings us to step 5, conducting the connector conversation. The goal with this for our clients is not to get on hundreds of these calls a week. It's to maybe to do 1 to 3 of these connector conversations per week. So we're setting up that conversation with an email like this, and the whole point is really to be super honest and direct so that you're not creating this kind of deer in headlights situation where somebody's like, oh, you're asking me for help, I wasn't expecting that. The idea is like there's different variations on this message. We've gone a little bit shorter and lighter. We've gone a little bit more specific, but the idea is you're getting on a call to network and to help each other. That's the vibe we're going for here. One common question that comes up is like, hey, can I just run these intros by people? Do I need to get on calls with them? I would say that if you have an existing referral relationship and they're used to that, yes. But for most of us, for most relationships, it really is helpful and really is worth the time to have this reconnector call for other reasons that I'm going to get into. So you're shooting out, 1 to 3 of these a week. Maybe you're following up, whatever, and then you get agreement to the call. You have the call. What happens there? How do you keep it tasteful, and how do you make this actually produce intros? So I'm going to go over the rough agenda for that right now. The first thing that a lot of people do is they're like, great, let me see how you can help me, and here's who I want to meet. That's not the way to do it. Really, we want to think about them first. We want to, really build up the reciprocity. So, how are you? How can I help you? Is there anybody you're looking to meet? What's new? And making it about them. From there, we're sharing screens and we're basically collaborating on intros for the people that we want to meet. So let me just go back a little bit. When I do this, I'm literally sharing a screen that looks like this. And I'm like, look, here's all the people that you might know. No pressure. You probably don't know all of them, and you may not feel comfortable introducing me to all of them, which is totally fine. But are there 2 or 3 that jump out to you as potentially good intros? And that's really important to kind of like bring down the pressure and really make it easy on them. And then as I'm getting agreement to these intros, and somebody's like, yes, I'll introduce you to John Doe and Jane Doe, as a little hack, if you're not doing this already, tisk tisk, you really should be like recording the call through your note takers so that you can reference everything later and you don't have to be taking notes live. So somebody's like, yeah, Bob Smith, whoever, I'm just saying the full name so I can go back and reference it after the call. And then you might be thinking, okay, job done, right? Like they've agreed to make the intro. Now I just have to sit back and wait for the money to roll in and I'm going to go shopping for my yacht, right? So not so much. Like the next thing we want to do is again make it as easy as possible on them. So we're sending a fast action email that allows them to help you. And there's some psychology that goes into that and some beats that we need to hit in order to make those intros stick. So with that in mind, I'm going to bounce around a little bit. If you want to get this template in a swipe file, it's just saleschema.com/referral email. That'll go right to it. It's basically just a Notion doc. So I'm going to try to bounce around here. I'm going to scan through it because the formatting's weird over slides. But basically, it's something like this, where this is literally something we coached our client through this week. I actually made an intro for him, and we've had other clients use this exact same format. So somebody's agreed to an intro. You're saying, great, thanks for everything. I'll follow up separate for my intros for you. That's really important. And you may even send that first if you've agreed to help somebody else, like do the thing for them first before you do the thing for you. But it's good to separate that and do a separate email. Otherwise, you're going to ask somebody to do too many things in one place, and it's less likely to get done. And then from there, we're making basically very specific intros. So we're saying, here's the name and here's a template you can copy and paste for that specific intro. We've recently advanced this process a little bit to improve conversions and to make these intros stick more. So keep in mind, like you might be getting an introduction to, this is a grand example, and you may not be going after somebody this big, but maybe it's like the CMO of Nike. That person needs to feel like they're not being chased, right? So we need to establish what Alfred Adler would call a horizontal relationship. So some of that is first getting in this element of timeliness and sort of this organic vibe. So it's saying like, hi, so-and-so, this is, by the way, the person connecting is copying and pasting this. So it's coming from them about you. Hope you and your company are going strong. I was speaking with another former client, this person, and your name came up in conversation. So I wanted to put you in touch. So timely and relevant is really big. And then there is an intro on what you do and why it's going to matter to this person, and a little intro on them, on the end person that you are meeting. And the idea behind that is, you, again, you don't want to make them feel like they're being chased. You want to kind of put both people on equal footing from the standpoint of your connector that is sending this email to link you two up, if that makes sense. And then you would do the same thing for each person. This may seem like a lot of work, but you're copying and pasting a lot of it, and this is going to make it way more likely to have those intros stick. So hopefully that's helpful. When we bounce back to this tab again real quick. And then from there, again, relevant and timely, horizontal relationship. And a really important part is, like, a lot of the times people are feeling weird about doing this. The idea is that your connector is selling a conversation with you, not your service itself. And the idea is that you want to be able to share your perspective and be a future resource. So that's what we're going for here. This is just more of the same of what I've already gone through. From here, this is just a little proof in the pudding. This is an agreement we got for one of our clients. Somebody saying like, great, let's talk, let's go from there. And like, really, this is what we're going for. This is really important. So with that in mind, you might be thinking, okay, where's this going? How do I make this into something that's more sustainable, that's going to help me go up those levels and get to this enterprise where things are more predictable? And the way that you do that is by nurturing these sorts of referral relationships into strategic partnerships, right? And really thinking about that. What could those strategic partnerships be for you? It might be non-competing agencies, it may be software companies, it might be private equity and other financial services, it could be trade associations, it could be consultants, it could be event producers. It's really going to run the gamut. I think the way that I used to get this wrong, and that we've seen lots of clients get it wrong, is they try to guess at the strategic partner, then they go meet the strategic partner, then they have these meetings that are very pleasant and they talk about all the things that they can do, then they trade NDAs and they trade agreements, and then nothing happens. Then you just sit on your hands. The worst thing is people also proactively selling like, hey, if you send me clients, I'll give you a commission, and then often nothing comes of it, because guess what, that alone isn't a huge incentive for somebody to help you. So, really, the way around this is everything that I've talked about up till now. You think about things by working backwards, by doing the data mining to figure out who could help you. You develop an MVP or a proof of concept by seeing if they'll actually help you. And then from there, once you have those potential intros in mind, if you really think somebody needs a commission structure or they ask for one, then explore it. But at least then you have something to go on, instead of just like frog kissing and wasting a lot of time. But like what tends to happen in nature and what tends to happen in all sorts of elements of marketing and business is there is this Pareto distribution where you might have a lot of these people that you're getting referrals from, but then a few are going to emerge as the ones that keep sending you referrals, or the ones that are always down to help. And then those are the ones that you actually go to bat for, and you're like, great, let's figure out how to make this work. Let's figure out what is going to get you up in the morning to help me. Maybe that's commissions. That's the most tried and true way, but maybe it's something else. Maybe it's sharing audiences, or maybe it's something else entirely, right? So that's really the way to think about strategic partnerships, by validating them before you do all this stuff. So that's really important. I want to go over the common objections that we tend to get, that I would be feeling as well. I think the first one is, hey, Dan, this seems like a lot of work. And yes, there's absolutely going to be work involved. I'd be very skeptical of anybody that stands up here that's like, nope, this is the thing that's going to change your agency for the better and it's going to make everything great. And also, there's no work. There is some, but it's a high touch, high leverage process. So for me, this is actually not a ton of work. And for our best clients, it's not either, because once you get it going, it's not like you're getting on like a dozen of these calls a week. If you kind of work backwards, like most of us have these sales KPIs we need to hit. If like you're going in for, if you're an upmarket agency, that might be like really a net new call a day, if not fewer, in order to hit your sales goals. So if you think about it, like you're also getting a situation where you're coming in with more trust. So you're probably going to get a higher conversion in the grand scheme of things. So if you're getting on like 1 to 3 of these connector calls a week, maybe like each one of them, what we tend to see is introducing you from anywhere to 2 to 5 prospects. Like you can really see this situation as being something where you're not going to have like tons of calls a week to make it worth the email follow-up. And Cena, you know what I'm talking about. If you're doing cold calls, like this is a lot less work and way more pleasant than like cold calling people or sending like one-to-one custom emails over and over again, or shoveling coal in the fire in any other number of ways. So that's a way to sort of reframe this. Like there is going to be work, but it's less than a lot of other stuff you could be doing. I think another objection we run into, which I definitely get, is like, I'm worried about asking for help. Am I taking something from them? Am I going to be seen as like greedy or not conscientious and so on? So there's a few things that play there. I think the first is like like a lot of speakers today have talked about, we're always playing positive sum games. We're always approaching this from a place of abundance. I think a lot of people's hesitation to ask for referrals is because we know, either consciously or unconsciously, that we're creating a lot of work for that person. So just by reducing the work and making it easy on them, you're going to have a lot less issues asking. Another thing is, like, as a reminder, we're going for a vibe of low pressure and being a future resource. So we're not going to like be dragging people into a sales process, which is going to make it easier for you to ask for help. And then also, like, a lot of the times, this idea of like, if somebody helps me with an intro, like I owe them, there's a debit that needs to be credited, is it's not always like that. A lot of the times people benefit from getting back in touch with others. Like I have situations with the client, just this week, where I made intros, but those intros also allowed me to put myself top of mind with somebody that I might like to do business with as well, in a non-competing fashion. It gives people an excuse to be back in touch and so on. Also, there's ways that you can help beyond just quid pro quo intros for them. Sometimes that'll be the case, but you may be dealing with somebody that may not be in a owner or sales position. They may want to keep in touch with you because maybe they want a job down the road. Maybe they want your insight. Maybe they want to learn about the latest AI tool that you're using. All those things are ways that this kind of positive sum game spins, and a way to sort of reframe like this idea of, oh, I'm only taking if I ask somebody for help. So that's really important. The last thing is, does this scale? The hashtag like startup life, does this scale sort of thing. It really does, and in a way that I think is not the infinite scale right away thing, but it really builds steam with a grain of salt, as they say. So here's how that happens. The first is thinking of this as a sprint that you're doing at the beginning. This is something we help clients do. And then you might do a sprint like this every 12 months, where you look back at the relationships that you might have missed and run basically the process that I've covered up till now. The other way is as a jog. So you might have a trigger event that allows you to run referral engine when it comes up. For example, you have a new relationship with somebody that's referral ready, that you would ask for help. Maybe it's that non-competing agency partner, et cetera. Or even better, a happy client, like your sales team, or if you're a salesperson, like you don't have to be the only one running this. If you have an accounts team, they could be running this exact same process, and you have a happy client. And instead of just saying, hey, let us know if there's anybody you can help, on your next check-in call, you're setting that expectation. Hey, I'd love to run a few intros by you. I'd love to see if you could help. Is that okay? And then running the same thing with them. We have clients that are using that as like the bread and butter for this more than anything else. And then from there, once it's sort of baked in, you're potentially expanding this. Maybe that's your colleagues, your business partners, or new salespeople that you bring on. And that's how it scales, in addition to like the more consistent strategic partners. So that's been most of this. You might be thinking like, what can I do on the direct outreach side? That's the other part of the strategy that we're usually working with people on after we pick as much low-hanging fruit as possible with the referral engine. And honestly, like the referral engine just keeps continuing and is the biggest thing regardless. And that brings us to the way that we're thinking about outreach, which we call the two-pronged outreach framework. Very simple. One prong is indirect, i.e., getting referrals, everything that I've covered. And then the other prong is direct, hitting up prospects to get meetings and to do business and all that good stuff. So the logic behind this is it's maximizing those shots on goal. It's finding multiple ways in. For the people that will never answer cold outreach, you're getting in through referral, and for the people that would, you're getting in that way. So you make it almost impossible to fail. That's the logic behind it. So what this looks like is just like I talked about. You have referral engine over there, and then you have trust-based outreach on the other prong. And I'm going to talk. That's not the main focus of today, but I want to talk about it from a high level. So when we're doing this for clients, we have that lead search, which is basically the total addressable market found through Sales Navigator. Then we're helping them do referral engine. And then once they're ready, sometimes in parallel, we're doing trust-based outreach. From there, there's not one strategy that works, but we're trying to get away from just the mass cold outreach kind of thing. We're trying to get away from, hey, do you need to hire an agency right now? If not, you can just ignore me or tell me to go away. So there's not one size fits all. It depends on our clients and who they're going after, but we're thinking about, a lot of our clients are going to conferences and trade shows. So is the prospect close to the vicinity of a conference you might be going to? Could you be setting up meetings before, during, or after? That automatically builds trust because it shows like I'm a real person. I am in your world. I am in your industry, etc. That's a no-brainer one. Another one we call Relco, basically working for a relevant company that maybe it's a client, or it's a prospect that used to work for one of your best clients, and you can use that as a way in. Hey, I saw you used to work for Symantec. That's great. They're one of our best clients. We should probably talk. Another is a podcast invite. This is more about like getting people involved in thought leadership. Even if you don't have a podcast, we have clients that are doing limited written interview series, studies, whatever it is. The idea is you're getting people to participate in the creation of content for you, as opposed to just going in cold and selling them. And then for everybody else, when nothing else works, then yes, we will do a more traditional kind of cold outreach approach. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I wanted to get to questions. Before we do that, no pressure for me. I just wanted to lay out a couple ways that could potentially help if you're interested. The first is my book, Relationship Sales at Scale. You can get that by going to salesschema.com/book. There's an optional bundle where you can get the audiobook and a follow-on training there. So that's probably the best starting place. For those of you that are interested in moving faster, to go over the referral engine real quick. Basically, we're looking to help install a repeatable referral system to fill your pipeline without any cold outreach or burnout. The outcome is to get up to 2 to 5 targeted intros weekly. We're basically doing that through a 90-day sprint where there's a done-for-you data build combined with training and accountability, about 2 to 5 hours a week. This is the best fit for agencies going after market clients that have kind of longer sales cycles, et cetera. Investments 8 to 12K total, depending on your network and the market you're going after. Before we do that, even if you're on the fence about it, the way we start with everybody to make sure this is viable is referral network diagnostic. So the goal of this is to give people at least a few immediate referral opportunities, regardless of what they decide to do, really get a lot more market clarity, and make sure that this strategy is valid based on your current network and the market that you're selling to, because we don't want you to do the full build until we know it's going to work. So there's a little bit of prep work. We do an hour workshop, and then we go from there. And the guarantee is if we can't find at least 3, then we would refund you, and that's $497 one time. So if you're interested, you can sign up at salesschema.com/diagnostic, or if you have questions or you just want to chat with me first casually, salesschema.com/Dan call. And that's it. So with that, would love to get to any questions that have come up and appreciate it.
Dan Englander dropping knowledge. That's why I was a slight delay. Dan, I was taking notes. I was like, man, this is good stuff. Partnerships, referrals, near and dear to my heart, activating the ecosystem. And I think you just laid out an extremely practical approach for folks. So if you're just kind of getting started on the ground floor with individual contacts you network versus partnering up with larger organizations and going after big fish together, makes a ton of sense. So folks, what questions do you have for Dan? He has worked with lots of firms like yourselves. And you see again, Cena, who's been very active. Appreciate that, Cena, talking about has not had to do cold outreach in months, only been doing partnerships, and it has helped them much more. So clearly folks are picking up what you're putting down.
Good. Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest mindset shifts that agencies have to go into to actually make this a regular part of their week? Is you did allude to some of this, but if you just want to double down on, should they shift from what to what?
Yeah, I think it's a shift from this kind of like apprehension about asking for help. I think that's the biggest thing, is kind of like the ego that goes along with, can you help me do this thing, versus just uh, having, and I think this is hardest on the agencies that have gotten mostly organic referrals and that sort of thing. So I think that's the biggest thing, is like having the courage to ask for help from people that already want to help you and would be really happy to do it, if that makes sense.
It does. And do you find sometimes that agencies come to you and they're sort of like, we want to meet net new people? They sort of skate right past their own Rolodex, right past their own sphere of influence. And they're kind of like, no, no, it's only meaningful. It's only valuable if I've never, ever met this person before. They've never met me, but now they want me somehow, or I've got a warm intro.
Yeah, I mean, this is still meant to get agencies in front of people they don't know, ultimately, right? That's still the goal of this. But the idea is, if you can just have a little bit more patience to go through an intermediary, you're going to come in with a lot more trust, and it's also going to be a lot more likely that that meeting and that relationship actually happens. So that's, I might have lost your question, but that's kind of the logic behind it, if that makes sense. Yep.
No, that's good. You're doubling down on no. You will ultimately meet these new folks, but we should start with the people who might you do know who might know those people you don't know, type thing, and have a real systematic way to go after them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what we find is, like, as you go up to higher levels and even lower levels now, like, there's more and more of those meetings that won't happen without the referral. And I'm not saying that this is the only thing that ever works. Of course, everything else contributes and can work as well. But that's what we're seeing more and more, as people just have this influx of options to choose from, right? It just becomes overwhelming. It's kind of like, who do I trust? And we all do that. We all like referrals when we're buying. Yep.
Yeah, true, true. Um, you talked about partnerships, which sometimes can be synonymous with referrals, but sometimes it's this whole other bag of worms. And if you're not careful, it becomes what you had described several minutes ago: a lot of pleasant meetings, a lot of sort of staring contests, you go first type of thing. And then finally, finger pointing and misgivings. So when you see a good, timely, relevant, strategic partnership taking place, what do you see there that says, all right, this is time well spent? These are meetings worth having beyond just the handshake. Because I agree with you, it's probably good just to start informally. Do we know anybody first? Like, why don't we just do that first and then formalize something afterwards, if you even need to formalize it? But when do
Yeah.
you see this is worth sitting down? This is a scenario where some of those extra cycles are well spent, and then how might you spend them to avoid that trap I just described that people get into?
Yeah, good question. I mean, not to make it all about our system, but I do think there's a lot of value to having that sort of metal detector on the beach, and then going like, oh, probabilistically, this person is somebody that's connected and could, at least has the ability to get me in touch before you begin. Because a lot of the times we go off with like these false assumptions where it's like, I think this company or this person could introduce me to a lot of people. So there's the able of the willing and able part before you get to the willing, if that makes sense. And then I think, honestly, like, a big part of the more formalized strategic partnerships conversations, it's a lot about conscientiousness. It's a lot about like, like, really, like, what do you want? Like, how can I help you? Not like, let me force feed you this commission structure that we came up with in a room on a whiteboard somewhere. And listening to people and figuring out like if there's a fit or not, just like any other sales situation. But I think it's time well spent, if because it's higher leverage, at the end of the day, if you can get it going.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the fact that sometimes we offer commissions because we think that's what's appropriate and that's only fair, but sometimes that makes the arrangement a little bit mercenary or even just a little
Yeah.
bit complicated needlessly, when it could have just been, hey, if I know anybody who's useful to you or relevant to you, and it's a win, it's obviously a win-win. Let's keep in touch. Let's do that. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you ever do any sort of like better together type enablement for them? If there is, let's say at that more enterprise level, this could be a whole group of people with spheres of influence we want to tap into. What do you might recommend to do to activate that a little bit at scale? Or maybe you say not to try to go at scale and really just start with one or two inspired reps or executives who want to do this with you, and then just kind of prove that out and percolate it from there.
Can
Um,
you elaborate a little on better together, to make sure I understand?
in that I have a whole list of people you might want to get in touch with. You have a whole list of people I might want to get in touch with. Rather than doing it one off, do we do a webinar together? Do we make a piece of content together? Do we co-sponsor a booth? I mean, there's a lot of that sometimes done in the name of partnerships and co-generating referrals. I've got a presence or a sponsorship somewhere. Or I have a sphere of influence, and going to go in and do a campaign together, like a webinar or trade show is the most common I see.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say you can absolutely do that, but you don't necessarily have to do that, right? Because there might be situations where their marketing message might just muddy the waters of yours or vice versa. But in terms of like really targeted intros, then those can exist in parallel with all the other things, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I'm just, folks, please, we've got some amazing thought leadership and experience here from Dan. This is your time, but I'm trying to anticipate some of the questions you might be asking. Since I have Dan here, I'm going to ask, but I want you folks to take first priority here in the chat with your questions, comments, reactions, even if you want him to look at your referral page or program if it exists online. But okay, Dan, so I had another one here for you. Your book, Relationships at Scale. Is there a system or habit in there, or from your deck or your other thought leadership about keeping these relationships warm? You know, if especially if it's not like a founder who naturally is going out and constantly mingling with their top 10 most influential contacts, is there certain systems for this is how you can grow and maintain a fluffy sort of cloud of potential referral sources over time, like you said, so that year to year it sort of grows and snowballs, and you don't have to constantly go back to those people, remind them who you're looking to meet with and stuff.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that there is like a natural. And there's actually a lot of research in the book that I bring up from Robin Dunbar about like the number of relationships you can actually maintain in your life, and then we have these kind of circles of influence, and they roughly go out by triples, right? So you have like this immediate circle of influence of like your family, your immediate family. You have your next circle from there, which are like your closest friends that you would confide in. Then you have another circle that's bigger, which is like maybe 100 people that you would invite to your wedding, and then you have another circle of like acquaintances. Then you have people that you have a face to a name with. So there is a point at which you can only maintain so many people in your life. So I think there's a little bit of a distinction between like real relationship versus like the loose connection that can lead to a referral. So I would say from like a business perspective to answer that, there's the really basic stuff of just like making sure everybody's in your nurture process, and they're getting emails, and like they're like at least like, oh yeah, I know Nick, like I've seen his stuff around, like
Sure.
you're doing all the eating your vegetables, putting out content and all that good that
Newsletters,
stuff.
LinkedIn followership, that type of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's another table stakes thing. Like you can't get away from doing that. Like whether it's
Right.
for partnerships, for prospects, everything. Like you're going to be making content.
Mhm.
So I don't have a lot to add beyond that, other than like back to making this process seasonal, right? So that you're taking stock maybe once a year, going back through the people that you've met. A great way to do that's through your first degree network, looking at everyone that's net new and figuring out like who do they know? Can I re-engage them? In budgeting time for that process, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I was just brainstorming with you. I'm like, yeah, what else could be done? And you talked about when you pull off these referrals and somebody does it, like, why not talk about it? Why not publish that up on LinkedIn for all those other followers that maybe haven't referred you yet or haven't done it in a while, saying, hey, somebody just gave me a great introduction and it was a total win-win. They were so grateful that they got introduced, and I'm so grateful
Yeah,
that person. Maybe just advertising a little bit, like the fact that you get referrals and people enjoy getting them. It's valuable to everybody, right?
yeah.
Have you ever encouraged that?
Sorry to cut you off, Vic. I was just going to add. You asked
Please.
the top of your questions. You asked like, what's the mindset shift I need to get into? Another one is getting out of this like I only want to talk to people when the timing is right mindset. The issue with that is, for one, like your market's getting more specialized as you get more specialized. So if and typically the people that are looking for a solution, a buyer is basically a state that somebody goes through. It's not a person themselves. So like maybe 3% of the market's looking to buy. So if you're thinking about that and your market's already small, you've got this real needle in a haystack problem. But the bigger issue is, even if you have some amazing data system, intent data, all this stuff to find those people, there's the trust factor. And like if they're going to switch their agency and they're putting their job on the line and they're taking this big, this big weighty decision, they're probably going to work with the agency that they met weeks, months, or even years prior. So there needs to be this heartbeat of like building these new relationships before people have a need. And that hence the approach of, I want to get in the door with this CMO to be a future resource. I want to talk to them before they have the need, not when they have it. It's great when you can get in at the right time, but that's not going to be sustainable, basically.
Totally. I have a bit of a nerdy partner question, folks, since you're leaving the chat open for me, but please jump in. We want to hear from you. But I'm wondering, Dan, I thought it resonated a lot with me when you said LinkedIn really is that source of truth on data, because that's the thing that we're all updating. Like, he's right. There's so many other tools and platforms you get distracted with. We can get a little bit of data over here, a little bit of information over here, but it's like really LinkedIn is where it's at. What's given that's the truth. What is your take on some of these platforms that have launched in the last several years that are like account mapping software, like Crossbeam, now Reveal and stuff? And we're talking about the more sophisticated, more at the enterprise level, maybe multiple sellers. We're doing account based, this, and that. Sound off on what your take is on if anybody should be worrying about that, or when that might be appropriate, or what are the potential like pitfalls or something like that of an account
Yeah,
mapping
I
tool.
love this. I love nerding out on this stuff. I'm going to use a metaphor that might fall flat, but it's kind of like like if you're like the best snowboarder in the world. I don't know who that is right now. Like the $5,000 snowboard is probably going to give you this incremental lift that's like definitely worth that sort of money. But like you're not the best snowboarder in the world. You don't have a funded sales team. You've got 5 hours a week to do this. Like the chances that that's going to be the thing and that that's going to make all the difference in the world are small. I also think intent data, there's a lot of there's some cool stuff. There's also a lot of BS. There's a lot of like needle in a haystack type stuff where it's like, okay, these people in these three organizations searched for this particular thing, therefore they want to hire an agency. It's like maybe that's not true. Maybe it is true and they already know the agency they're going to hire. There's a lot of noise that you're going to have to sift through, a lot of chaff you're going to have to sift through to find that wheat, that it's not always going to be this game changer that you think it is. So that's not to like throw all that stuff under the bus and say there's nothing interesting. Clay is amazing. We use Clay all day for data enrichment. There is other data, like if you sell to e-commerce, like there's ways that you might, for example, enrich Clay data to find everybody that has a skew above this or that. Like, I'm not saying it's just LinkedIn, but for a lot of our clients, that's a really good starting place, and that can get them very far without getting swayed by some pitch for like a really expensive intent data platform. So anyway, I'm all over the place. Hopefully that's
No, I
useful.
hope folks you were listening with what Dan said, because I know it's an impulse of me whenever I want to try to do better at something that I'm not doing all the time. You kind of index on the tech, the tools. What can I quickly just acquire, buy, and set up? And maybe that'll take care of the spade work of actually mapping my relationships and actually reaching out to some of my old friends and contacts and catching up. It's like, oh, that's scary, but I can give my credit card to this company, start doing some account mapping, and stare at spreadsheets and windows for a little while longer. Um,
It,
it's
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
it's a trap. So I
It
hear
can
you on
be.
that. It's not that it can't come in, but I hear it's like that's a pretty cart before the horse. I would wait. What I'm hearing is exhaust some of the fundamental, pretty tried and true, straighter line to quality referral stuff you've been talking about, and then
Yeah.
yeah, you want to splash some tools on top because your team gets it now. They're open to that. How do we find more referrals? Gosh, we've closed dozens of them this year. How do we really scale this up and uncover the final rocks that we haven't turned over yet? Then maybe you start squeezing it out with these tools, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And I think you bring up a good point, Nick, is like you really back to the third point of like expanding this to your team, that you really can make this collaborative. And like if you're having these team sales huddles or whatever anyway, like bringing this to their network and then figuring out like who like how to exponentially expand this. Because what we tend to see, especially on the account side, is the team is sitting on lots of this institutional knowledge, like all these people that you forgot about that will help you, or that even can just do business with you directly, like former clients and stuff. So that makes sense.
We got a question from Rusty. Thank you, Rusty. You
Rusty.
get it. Right. And I think this is great, Dan, because I've been all over your website while you were talking. It's a fun website, by the way, guys. Like no holds barred. He's not trying to blow smoke here. He's just keeping it real. But you had a whole page of tools. And I'm like, so this guy gets tools. Do you have a preferred CRM in the game? Maybe it's not because it's partner or referral friendly, or maybe it is. But what do you like to do for CRMs, given you help people do this a lot?
Yeah, and full disclosure, I think we have this on the page. We do have like affiliate relationships with sales outreach tools and stuff that we like. We don't currently have one with any CRM, just because there isn't one that we love a whole lot more than the others. I think back to the bloated software stuff, I think mostly what we see is our clients like either doing something that's kind of a broken process and using a spreadsheet, or they're like buying a HubSpot, which tends to be overkill, and they spend a lot of money and it doesn't really work. So Rusty, by the way, hope you're doing well. It's been a while. With CRMs, I don't have one that I love more than the others. We're on Go High Level, which has its pros and cons. There's one that I just had a call with Bailey, who's sponsoring the event, Gia. Full disclosure, I haven't dug into it yet, but I really like what he's trying to do, so I still need to dig into it. And I think that that's geared towards the problems that I am talking about. So I'll just say I'm excited to dig into Gia. I'm a little biased because they are sponsoring, but they're the only software that I've seen say like, "Hey, we're focused on busy agencies," and then
Yeah,
there's others out there. Yeah,
same deal. I was like, I'm contacting them just for that. You back in the All In Agency Summit? That's already. I mean, talk about the power of referrals. I mean, it's reinforcing proof in the pudding right here. Well, we want to go with the one that Chris Dubois actually knows. Yeah, and
yeah,
that we feel like the people that we trust also trust, and that has these actually tried out, right?
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. But I would
so
just say, like, if you don't have a CRM, something simple that works for you, like even a spreadsheet's better than some bloated piece of software that you don't understand. So anyway, you can take it from there, Nick.
Amen. Don't overtool it, guys. That's what you're hearing Dan say. And Dan, we still got a couple minutes here. I see Sean Lang just came in, folks. It's about to get hot. We're about to go into the 3 o'clock session. It's going to be good, but we still got a few precious minutes with Dan here. So Dan, you're showing right here on the screen a very affordable, low risk chance for some of us who desperately need to grow, to get some help, working our own network in such a practical, thoughtful, humanistic way. I want to give you a chance just to give a final plug for the value of doing that and why people can feel confident. Dan, I'm going to play a little bit of soft inspirational music as you make this final pitch, my friend.
I was hoping you'd play like Highway to the Danger Zone or something, but
Oh,
I'll take this.
you want to get wild? No, we get there
If
a
you
little bit
could bring
more.
up Highway to the Danger Zone, that would
Well, no,
definitely help me close some deals there.
these are mostly like royalty free
Oh, that makes
track,
sense. Yeah.
but
Well, as you can see, I'm very much a designer, so I hope you like this page here. But basically, the idea with this is just to first make sure this is going to work for you and help you get immediate referral opportunities. So, like, to dig further into the process, since I have some time to sell, what we're doing here is we build a prototype of our client's market. So we build like a version of the LinkedIn Sales Navigator lead search. We have our clients come up with a sample of their referral-ready connectors, and then we join those two things together to figure out like what are a few immediate referral opportunities you can get right away and help you get off to the races. From there, we either have like a green, yellow, or red light on the full build. And that's totally up to you whether you want to continue. But with the full build, if we do go on to that, then a big part of it is us doing the whole process I've described today for you, and then building in a lot of accountability and training. So like the idea is we just give you this spreadsheet. What are the chances you're going to do anything with it? Like I'm not doing anything with it. I'm going to get busy and be like, oh, this is such a great idea, Dan. Thanks so much. And then, that's that. So
yep.
what we do is we literally have sprint sessions where we sit down with clients, and the goal is like by the end of this, you are sending out the emails to get on these connector calls. And then after those calls, you're sending out these emails to get targeted intros, and that's all happening in the first 90 days. So that's the idea. Yeah, and so if it's interesting, even if you want to learn more, you can sign up on the link or just grab time with me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You can't lose here, friends, right? You can just chat with Dan about it conceptually. You can go ahead and jump in and do the $497, or you can go ahead and sign up for a pretty reasonable full-on package and get that accountability and training just talking about. Guys, I just want someone to do this. I love referrals and partnerships, so we're going to be in touch, Dan. Appreciate you coming in and sharing, just opening the kimono with us a little bit as to how it's done. You gave us solid examples we can all act on. So let's do it, gang. Let's go make it happen. Make Dan proud. That's what we want to do. So thanks for going all in with us, Dan.
Really appreciate it,
you.
Nick. Yeah, likewise.
All right, my friends. The excitement continues. The excitement continues with none other than the world famous Sean Lang. We're talking about why most agencies plateau and how to build one that runs without you. That would be cool, right? Is it a dream? No. We have real practitioners who have real results, real stories to tell. So I'm going to talk about him real quick before he comes on. Sean's the founder of Agency Uplift. He's the host of the Agency Uplift podcast. Good brand alignment there. He's an agency coach and an agency owner, helping founders build self-managing agencies. Wouldn't that be nice? Outside of business, though, he's a professional drummer, and he has performed internationally. We want to hear a little bit more about that. Maybe he'll weave it in to the talk. And so we're going to hear about why most agencies plateau, how to build one that runs without you, especially relevant for anybody here on the line